Hello there, Sword friends. Today I'm going to attempt to answer the question, do I think SwordTube is dead on YouTube? And forgive this less flattering angle of me, I am on my spare camera. I've tried to record this video a few times, but life has had other plans for me. Regardless, though, I've been asked, what is my take on this subject? Because my fellow SwordTubers have given their thoughts on it. Is SwordTube dead? And that is broken out, I think, into two different questions that are getting conflated. And before I attempt to address either one of them, I would point out I do this as an amateur. I don't dance for my supper on YouTube. This is just for fun. And therefore, I don't give it the same scrutiny or attention that people who do really need YouTube, who have chosen it as a vocation, would do. I'm not the expert. I'm a hobbyist, but I am monetized, and I am impacted by YouTube's decision to prioritize or deprioritize the content that I make. It does affect me, but I'm just less sensitive about it because I don't rely on the income. With that in mind, I can kind of go into the subject here, and I see at least the questions I'm being asked are, is SwordTube dead? Are you going to keep making videos? Is kind of the root of some of the questions that I've gotten. At the same time, I see my fellow creators making content that are kind of wondering, is it viable as a business? Can you do this as a job still and still be, at least primarily focused on the subject of swords or sword-related content? And those, while related, do seem like different subjects to me. So I'll attempt to first answer the question, is SwordTube dead from the viewer perspective? Will you continue to see sword-related content on YouTube? Will there still be lots of cool stuff to see? And the short answer I have is yes, and I furthermore think it's in a good place, at least from the standpoint, if you're looking for it, it's there. And there's an eager community of people that are willing to share their knowledge. There's misinformation on there and whatnot as well, but at the same time, if you're just looking to start somewhere, there's a lot of very competent people posting a lot of good information about swords, people that are doing it at a high level, at a low level, and the barrier to entry on YouTube in particular has become very low. 20 years ago, the ability to create a video was hard, and now it's not that it's easy if you're trying to really make something with a lot of polish on it, but to make passable video that you can see and hear is not as hard as it used to be. And so people are more likely to make it. Also, people are just more comfortable being insulted by strangers on the internet. So it seems like the willingness to participate in YouTube or something like YouTube is higher than it used to be. And I've seen channels come up and seem to do quite well in relatively short matters of time, both on the large scale, but more on the small. It seems like this niche community we have is has a hungry appetite for voices, and if you are willing to create sword content of a passable, consumable level, it's pretty conceivable that you will get to 1,000 subscribers in a relatively short amount of time. It took me years and years to get to 1,000 subscribers, and I've seen people do it here in a matter of months. Granted, the content has to be of a reasonable quality, and you have to have something to say, but if you do that, it's conceivable that you could have at least 1,000 subscribers on a channel if you're willing to talk about swords, which isn't the same thing if you were to talk about movies or video games or some other popular subject. There's no guarantee that you would get to that level, even if you made okay content. So anyway, it does seem like the barrier to entry is small and the eagerness for the material is high, and so I think the content will continue to exist. I think you're going to continue to see it from folks like me that don't do it for a job. That said, I think it's a little different when you talk about it as a job. And so that is a different subject. And it's worth reiterating that I'm not an expert in the subject matter here. I don't do it for a living, but I have noodled on the idea of what would it be like if I did it for a living. And that prospect is frankly terrifying, because it's YouTube is a fickle mistress. So I am monetized. I do get impacted by the ability to make videos and if they're prioritized and how well they do. And I do see a downward trend, frankly. I don't necessarily see the views impacted that much. Generally speaking, when I post a video and it's about a sword and the subject matter that I cover, I generally tend to see a pretty consistent amount of views, which have never been particularly high. But the audience that wants my content seems to find it consistently. At the same time, it's not really growing, at least not like it was. A year ago, I was seeing growth of around 400 subscribers a month on average. Now I'm seeing 200. It's still growth, but it's slow and steady, and I'm not gonna be rolling in the dough, flying a helicopter to work kind of thing anytime soon with that crazy YouTube money. So that's my perspective. I certainly do see it. It does seem like sword content is just not captivating interest the same way it did, or there's other things that are doing better. I don't know if it's some secret, vendetta against sword content, or if it's just that there's a different economy for people's attention, and other stuff keeps eyeballs on the platform more than sword content does. But it does seem like a lot of folks are saying they're not necessarily seeing the same growth. They're not seeing the same views. Things that used to get a lot of attention don't. And I could agree that that seems to be the case for me. Things that would usually fuel growth on my channel don't necessarily seem to do the same thing. However, I feel like if I make content that's a little bit more in line with what people want to see, you know, if I make a top 5 sword type video, I see new viewers come to the channel. If I really acquiesce to the algorithm and make a top 5 sword shaped objects that you can stick in your butt, like that would be a probably successful video, but I don't really want to make that video. So I'm resigned to not seeing a lot of growth. For folks that are making content and kind of struggling with new ideas, it seems like I am penalized. Anytime I make something that is not sword review related, I see less views on that particular subject. If I make something that really plays to the algorithm well, maybe I see a little bit of growth, but that's just not something I can really keep up. And if I tried to, I honestly don't know if I could every time. I'm not creative enough to think of things. So I digress. The other thing is, this is a hard job, right? I struggle with keeping a video out every week. And so for the creators out there, and for prospective people looking at getting into YouTube as a job, I would say, you know, temper your expectations. I've found a lot of joy in doing this as a hobby and getting to create videos that I want, and come what may, right? I feel like I get to meet cool people that are interested in the same things. I'm in a very blessed position to get some cool stuff that I would like to play with for free to try out and share with other people. I get to learn about technology in a way that is still fun for me and doesn't feel like work necessarily. But it still is, you know, pressure. It still is hard to keep up. If you're a channel that wants to be really, really big, then likely you're going to have to devote a ton of time, as in almost, you know, day and night, night and day kind of thing. You're going to have to work at YouTube. There's not going to be a lot of breaks, and it's going to turn into a job. The thing that you love is probably going to be hard to keep the same passion up for. I experienced this when I used to be really interested in hi-fi audio, used to be a bit of an audiophile, and then I got a job doing something related to that, and it really killed the passion for it. So I'm cautious about that. I really treasure my enjoyment of this hobby, and if it feels like work, I'm in a position where I get to stop. But if you dance for your supper on YouTube, that is not possible, and you have to dance to the tune that people want to listen to. You have to you feel like you're your own boss, but when you don't really get to make the creative content you want because it won't be successful, it probably doesn't feel particularly good or joyful to make that content. And so I don't think it starts to feel like anything more than a job, more than likely. The other thing I'd point out is the idea of how successful you can be here has to be, you have to get some realistic expectations here. So there's a lot of different ways to monetize your success on YouTube. You have different ways your community can contribute. You can sell different things. You can do all sorts of different things that I see other creators do to varying degrees of success. And I imagine if you're a sword company and you make a YouTube channel and have something to sell behind it, that's probably the best way to do it. I see Mini Katana being probably the largest sword channel on YouTube as of recording this video, but they have a store you can buy stuff from, and they make content that seems to appeal to people that aren't just fans of swords. And I also see RVA Katana has a pretty sizable following as well. They have a store that sells stuff, and they're very active. But that's, you know, either way, that's a lot of work. There's a lot of time spent on the internet, to varying degrees of editing. It's definitely a lot of commitment to do. Other than those folks that have kind of a store behind them, you have some other large voices on the platform, and it seems to be that the ceiling to like talk about videos is between 1 million and 2 million subscribers, at least if that's how you're judging channel success in large channels. I don't know that that's necessarily the most important thing, but from a viewer's perspective, if you look at a channel with 1 million or 2 million subscribers, that seems pretty large. And to have that level of success, you would be among the top creators in this space. And if I were to quit my job and look at that and say, hey, if I work really hard, maybe I could have 1 million subscribers, I'd still struggle to buy a used Toyota in my current model, right? Like, nobody's flying a helicopter to work with 1 million subscribers. It's not that kind of money. But it is ludicrous amounts of commitment in terms of time. You also have to be on all the time. You have to be constantly creating, making content a lot, have your creative juices flowing, have your technical skills up to snuff to make those videos, and you also can't have a bad day. Like nobody wants to see an old curmudgeon. People value authenticity, and if you're kind of in the dumper, you're not. Nobody wants to watch it, right? So it's a really hard job. It's a hard job to do. I am a mediocre supply chain manager by my day job, and I get to have a bad day. I can kind of be heads down and stay in my keyboard, and I can still make a living. I can have a healthy work-life balance, and I can do all that and more or less do as good or better than a lot of the top-tier YouTubers out there. So it doesn't seem like it would make a lot of sense for me to pursue this vocation, because I look at it and I'm like, if I work really, really hard, I could have a harder life. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So I wouldn't say YouTube is for everyone. However, if you feel like you are really compelled to do it, I would say go for your dream. Give it a shot. It's something that you can do part-time, but I would say, it is a extraordinarily challenging thing to do, and YouTube as well doesn't really tell you if you fail. They tell you when you succeed, but in my job, if my day job, if I've worked for a company for 30 years, they could just as easily say, hey, your services are no longer required, fuck off. And that could happen, but there's a break point, and I am told I'm not going to get paid. Go try to get your money somewhere else. Go somewhere else. YouTube doesn't do that. They just kind of stop paying you. They quit you. they pay you much less and then leave it to you to figure out how to be successful again. While simultaneously not giving you no guarantees that will ever happen. And that's really, really tough. It'd be like if you like your job and the people you work with, you can keep doing it just for way less money, and we might not pay you at all. Like, that's a very weird thing, but that's kind of what YouTube does. So is it a good business? No, it's terrifying. I feel for the creators out there that are trying to make a living in this space. If you want to see the content that they make, I'd encourage you to support them. They have usually some Patreon or some other membership or something like that. Even watching the content, liking the video, calling them a bitch in the comments is still engagement. It still helps the algorithm. Any of that kind of stuff is not that I'm encouraging you to call them all bitches. I shouldn't have said that, but I digress. The point is, any engagement can help if you want to see the creators do that, that are making content today, continue to make it at the quality that they're making it or better. It will likely require your support. Me, I'm going to keep doing it regardless. I have a membership program. Don't bother giving it to me. I don't need your money. There are creators out there that absolutely do, though, if you want to continue to see what they make. So the point, as I kind of wrap it up here, is it possible to make a living doing this? Yeah, it's just really hard. And the people that are successful at it, tip of my hat to them. There's an immense amount of commitment that goes into it that you probably don't get to see. Constantly being creative, a constant dedication to time, and always kind of being on and in a consistent, solid mood. It's like those are tough things to do all the time, and they deserve some commendation for being able to pull it off. At the same time, if they can't and it doesn't work, I wish them well. I hope they find things that I do wonder if YouTube, hey, I was an influencer for 20 years. What can I be an accountant now? I don't know how those skills transfer. I imagine they do, and it's just because I'm not in a creative workspace and I do dumb math stuff for a living that it's hard for me to see the transferable skills. YouTube creators have to run their own business and wear a lot of hats, and I'm sure that tenacity is going to be helpful somewhere. It seems like a weird transferable skill. If you're trying to pick a different job, it's not like, hey, YouTube's gone away, you can just immediately transfer to another platform and start over again. It's a very tough thing to do. But the content won't stop. So even if creators do, you are still going to see people that are going to make amateur YouTube videos, talk about swords. I don't think that's going to stop, and I think it's going to grow from what it is today. So there's two different sides to it, but I see and feel the challenge of creating a successful content on YouTube. It's hard. I never really achieved it, but I'm happy regardless. And I'm happy that there's still a strong community of smaller creators here, though. When I think back on the fun of YouTube, it wasn't necessarily the folks that did this as a job that drew me to it. I liked the amateur video. I liked that just everyday people that like swords could make content about YouTube. And I hope to see more of that. If you've got something to say, incidentally, it's never been easier to create a channel and to put yourself out there. And if you're curious about how to do it, hell if I really know how to, but I'm happy to help you. Welcome to reach out to me for suggestions if you want them. Anyway, that's all I got. That's my take on is SwordTube dead? No, it's just hard to make a living on it. I feel for the people trying. But no, you're still going to see awesome content, or at least passable content. That's all I got. Cheers. Thanks for watching.